I don't think Twitter has done as much bad for America as Fox News has, but so Fox News has sort of poisoned America, whereas Twitter has poisoned the well of discourse in America. So poisoning America is probably worse than poisoning the well of discourse in America.
Okay, so can we be serious about Twitter for a second? Like, what I don't understand about your opinions on Twitter is that Twitter is sort of what you make it, right? Like,
that's why I genuinely, or generally speaking, discuss left Twitter. You know, because that's the part that I find, I feel like left Twitter should know better.
Let me finish. So you have this boogeyman of left Twitter out there that you hate, right? Why don't you unfollow it?
Not hate.
I mean, you're pretty outraged by it.
Well, I don't use Twitter. No. I don't use Twitter.
But that's my point.
If Donald Trump spent as much time being president as you spent railing against left Twitter, the AHCA would have passed.
No.
It's true, dude. Like, I mean, you do talk about Twitter quite a bit.
Well, but left Twitter is basically the media, right? Like, or like originalism, right? Like left Twitter is just whatever Ruchit is angry at. If Ruchit is angry at it, then he calls it left Twitter, right? It's like what Trump calls fake news. Fake news is just news that Trump doesn't like. Left Twitter is tweets that Ruchit doesn't like.
Congrats to Zuck, this is in our tech channel, Tom.
Okay.
Congrats to Zuck, whose family now has more women than Facebook's board of directors. This is the exact...
So this is left Twitter?
Yeah. Is Melanie Hanna not a part of left Twitter, AJ?
I don't know, dude.
She's a reporter at Gizmodo?
Dude, she's part of left Twitter, man. This
is
a classic
left Twitter is just all the tweets that Ruchit doesn't like.
No, I'm just saying this is
like originalism, right?
No. This is what left Twitter does, right? Is they make snide remarks about everybody all the fucking time.
What was the snide remark?
That's all of Twitter. All of Twitter makes snide remarks. You don't think right Twitter makes? You don't think hashtag top conservatives on Twitter? You don't think TCOT is making snide remarks?
No. I'm sure they are. I guess I just have higher expectations for left Twitter than I have for right Twitter. Maybe that's wrong.
Richard, I have to cut all of this from the show because it's all bullshit. This is all the worst bullshit. This is going to be the episode where we get our explicit tag, and the reason why is that I'll have called you bullshit too many times.
No, this isn't bullshit, dude. You just don't like it. I mean, but, again, left Twitter, so you don't like something, mock it, call it bullshit, It's sad.
Am I left Twitter now? Is our Skype call left Twitter because you don't like it?
You're left Twitter. Come on, you don't think you're left Twitter?
This is all stupid. I'm cutting all of this from the show. Those last 10 minutes have not been useful.
There's nothing like when AJ gets mad about things he has to cut. Tom, I think the only thing we should have done differently is we should have split up this conversation so there was more discussion of left Twitter in different places in this show.
Okay, imagine that the show starts now. I actually think that there is one thing that may be worth saying that may actually be worth getting into the show, and it's this.
What is that?
That people have higher standards for the left than for the right. And the reason why is that people... I think that a lot of folks... so first of all, people always have lower standards for their own team, right? So for about 40% of America has lower standards for the left than for the right. And about 40% of people have lower standards for the right than for the left. And there's about 20% of those people that either sit in the middle or like to think of themselves as sitting in the middle. And a lot of those people run, like the editorial board of the New York Times or whatever. And those are the people that have much, much, much lower standards for the right than for the left. And it's weird because they're a fifth of the country, but they represent, say, 100% of the hiring decisions at the New York Times editorial board. And suddenly you have Bret Stephens writing some like climate denialism column in the New York Times. And the reason why, if there were some comparably intellectually vacuous left-wing person, like Louise Mensch would never get a column in the New York Times, right? Because the standards on the left are much, much, much higher. So representing this sort of far...
What about Maureen Dowd, dude? Maureen Dowd doesn't really say anything useful. Okay, there's your counterexample.
No, but Maureen Dowd is not left wing. Maureen Dowd is pretty
She's
centrist,
not?
right? No, she hated Bill Clinton as much as she liked Bill Clinton, right? I mean, she's just snarky. She's smarmy, right? Like she's the Gawker definition of smarm. I don't think she has.
She's left Twitter.
Maureen Dowd is left Twitter.
No, I'm talking about this being like extremely smart, snarky, and dismissive of everything you disagree with.
Probably the most liberal New York Times columnist, Paul Krugman, who is a Nobel laureate in economics, and shoring up the right wing. Supposedly the intellectual right wing of the New York Times editorial board is Bret Stephens, who is most famous as a climate change denialist. And so, if you're trying to tell me that there's some sort of equivalence between needing a Nobel laureate credentials to be the left wing,
no, but that's
the
like
New York Times editorial board.
The counter argument that we could make. No. Hold on a second. The counter argument you could make to that is like saying Fox News is so conservative that the most qualified person that they can find is Alan Combs, right? May he rest in peace. But they I think. I don't think the New York Times is like particularly liberal in any event, but
the New York Times isn't a liberal publication. The New York Times is a pretty centrist publication.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's easy to just say that like there are, I think your point is there are no like credible conservative thought leaders or thinkers, and you're using as evidence for that who the New York Times chooses. And I'm just saying that's not that different from saying there are no credible, liberal like thinkers because look at Alan Combs. He's all Fox News could find. No,
I don't think there are no credible conservatives, right?
Rich, do you really think that Fox News is the right-wing equivalent of the New York Times?
No, what I'm saying is that you're using an example. You're saying that the New York Times can't find. It sounds like you're saying the New York Times can't find credible conservatives, for their op-ed page because there are none.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they don't try as hard, right? They take any old
maybe the New York
schmo.
Times should try harder then.
Any old schmo with a decent diction and a contrarian view on climate is qualified to be the right wing of the New York Times editorial board, and to be on the left wing of the New York Times editorial board, you have to be a Nobel laureate. That's my point.
Okay, so that's just the New York Times, I guess.
Right. My point is not that there are not intellectually rigorous conservatives. My point is that no one cares to hold conservatives to the standard of being intellectually rigorous. Right. Like the reason why people like David Frum don't particularly stand out is that as much as I hate David Frum, at least I sort of, I have like some modicum of respect for the rigor of his ideas. And, like the reason why David Frum doesn't stand out amid the sea of conservatives is that like, people are just as happy to read Pap.
I think this is as much a point on the fact that the New York Times maybe should try harder as it is on, what people's standards are for conservatives versus.
But like George Will has a column in the Post, right? Like it's like up and down. All of the nominally left leaning newspapers have these totally vacuous right wingers on their editorial page who honestly don't belong in any sort of intellectual conversation.
I guess I don't read a lot of the right wing editorials, so I don't know.
Think about it. David Brooks has a column.
He's good. David Brooks is awesome.
Oh, David Brooks is the worst. Oh my God. Of course you would love David Brooks.
Indeed I do. I think David Brooks is awesome.
What is one thing you like about David Brooks?
Lots of stuff I like about David Brooks.
Okay, I asked you for one thing.
Sure. So, okay, I'll give you one. So, just a couple days ago, he wrote a column about the Charlottesville issue and about Trump's response and about Republican complicity. It sounded not that different from what Paul Krugman wrote the other day, honestly. So I like that. That's a good example. I think David Brooks threads an interesting. I don't think it's even threading a needle, but one thing that he wrote about in that column yesterday or the day before or whatever was about the split in the Republican Party between.
Was it
called the white?
How to roll back fanaticism?
No, it was about white identitarians. I don't know if that was the title or not, but it was about basically he talked about it as sort of quote unquote, universalists on ideas of sort of on ideas of race and things of that nature versus people that are really focused on sort of white identity. And that's sort of the divide between the Republican Party or inside the Republican Party right now. And of course he counted himself as someone that was more universalist and more inclusive. But I thought that was an interesting
Is that
piece.
actually a divide in the Republican Party? Who are the elected Republicans who are universalists on race?
I think he named John McCain as an example. I think he named all the usual people that you hate, AJ. So, I wouldn't expect you to consider their opinions credible, since they don't agree with you. So, I think it's how Trump kills the GOP. I think that's the column.
Arpaio?
Dude. Sheriff Joe. So I think actually we should maybe stop calling this asshole. Man, damn it! We're gonna get explicit. Anyway, I think like we should call him Sheriff Arpaio, because Sheriff Joe makes him seem like everybody's favorite drunkle, if you will.
I just called him Arpaio.
Yeah, I agree. I just meant that I normally call him Sheriff Joe, and I think he's typically referred to in the media as Sheriff Joe. So, but yes, Sheriff Joe Arpaio.
Do we want to give a quick background?
Yeah. Who is Sheriff Joe Arpaio? Who is this guy?
So from my understanding, he's a sheriff in Arizona, and he's done a lot of bad stuff. So historically, what he's done is I created this little list of things that he did. He created these tent cities that he called them, that to house prisoners, and he called them concentration camps. There's a great article in the Washington Post by an individual who spent a year in Arpaio's tent jail, and the title is, "I spent a year in Arpaio's tent jail, and he should never walk free." He has done publicity stunts, such as marching Latino prisoners into segregated areas with electrified fences. He falsely arrested local reporters for investigating him. The county had to settle for $3.5 million out of these false arrests. He stopped investigating crimes reported by Latinos, including the sexual assault of children. But he had enough money to send a deputy to Hawaii to investigate Barack Obama's birth certificate. He staged a fake assassination against himself and then framed a man for doing it. Yes. Against himself, and then framed a man for doing it.
So all of this stuff is in the show notes, by the way,
yes.
If you're listening to this.
Almost all of this is stuff that Arpaio has been sued for and either lost or settled. Yeah. I mean, so the statistic that I saw is that Arpaio has cost taxpayers like $140 million in judgments.
Something insane. Anyway, as a result of this long line of racially motivated conduct, a federal court in 2013 found that he was racially profiling Latinos. And of course, in response to this,
the way, for our listeners, that's illegal and morally wrong.
Yes. In response to this finding, he hired a private investigator to investigate the judge and his wife. And even though the court told him to stop discriminating, he continued to discriminate against Latinos, including destroying evidence that might have incriminated himself further. Basically, as a result of all of this, the court held him in contempt. And courts have inherent power to hold individuals in contempt. Basically, the court tells an individual...
We've talked about this on the show before.
Have we?
Yeah.
Oh.
We have?
We had a Supreme Court case about it.
Huh.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Guys, we're having so many shows, we're forgetting.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was held in criminal contempt of court, and that's what Trump weighed in on. And Trump pardoned Sheriff Arpaio for that criminal contempt of court. And I think the big takeaway for me was this is a message to all of Trump's cronies that they can do whatever they want, and it is a blank check. Trump will pardon you. And it of course undermines the rule of law.
So how does it do that, Tom? So
how does it undermine the rule of law?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, we have a constitutional system, right? We have a system set up where Congress passes the laws. The president signs those laws and executes those laws. And the court system is the final arbiter of what the law is, right? Interprets the laws.
And whether someone is obeying the law or disobeying
the law.
Well,
that's part of interpreting. You can't say, you can't have a judgment as to whether someone is obeying or disobeying a law without interpreting the law, right?
Totally.
So when the court system and the judiciary interprets the law and says someone is disobeying the law, that is, under our Constitution, supposed to be the final word, right? But if a president goes and pardons everyone that the judiciary says is disobeying the law, that undermines that constitutional system. And that I think that it might actually be or lead to a constitutional crisis, if not,
So one of the interesting things is so of course the president does have the power to pardon, right? And so I think something that people might be thinking is, hey, he has the power to pardon. So, like, what's the big deal? Like, people pardon good people. I mean, you don't get a pardon unless you've committed a crime, right? Most of the time, right? So you have to have done something bad. And the Constitution gave the president the power to pardon people. And then so, you look at people that have been pardoned over history by other presidents, and, sometimes they've been bad people. Sometimes they've been people that have served their time. But, why is this pardon particularly different than any other pardon?
I mean, I think it's because, A, it doesn't follow the normal processes of a pardon, because there's an entire office in DOJ dedicated to combing through these requests for pardons and seeing whether they meet the criteria for a pardon and making recommendations to the president, and then the president acting upon those recommendations, right? But I think the bigger issue, the second, and I think the bigger issue is that it really undermines the judiciary when you pardon someone that it flaunts a judicial order.
And I think another thing that's an important aspect of this is Sheriff Joe Arpaio is an officer of the law. So he's not just any random person, right? He's a sheriff. He has duties, and he is an officer of the law. He in many ways enforces the law. When he arrests people, for example, or when he puts people in what he labels concentration camps. His words, not ours. So when a judge finds that Sheriff Arpaio, as an officer of the law, is discriminating against people, and he's conducting himself illegally, and then he refuses to follow that court order, and then is convicted of refusing to follow a court order. At that point, by pardoning him, what President Trump is doing is basically saying to the judiciary, I will not enforce the orders that you put down. In fact, I will flaunt your orders.
Yeah, undermining the rule of law, right?
But I think the reason it's so important is because this is a situation where there's someone that Trump agrees with politically, and the judiciary has said, listen, this isn't about politics. This is about very much, do you follow the law or do you not? And in this case, Sheriff Arpaio did not follow the law. And Trump
I think that's
absolves
an understatement,
him.
Right? Like,
yeah.
This guy.
He flaunted the law. No, he seems horrible. I mean, he flaunted the law, which I think he flaunted a judge's order, right? He refused to obey a judge's order, which is I think very different than your ordinary prisoner, that does really anything, because they're not an officer of the law. They're not held in any high regard, you know what I mean, or any special regard, at least by our society. So I think it also does what you said, Tom, which is that it sends a signal to everyone else that, Trump's saying, I've got your back.
Did you guys see that Sheriff Arpaio may challenge Ruchit's boy Jeff Flake for that Arizona Senate seat?
Dude, I hope Sheriff Joe gets destroyed.
Man, I really thought that the GOP couldn't do worse than Kelly Ward, and here we are.
Sheriff Joe would be the worst person I think they can put up in this situation, but maybe they'll surprise me.
It'll be nice to see Arpaio and Roy Moore topping those state tickets 2018.
Moore is the former Supreme Court justice from Alabama. Right?
Mm-hmm. He is.
Yeah, he was the one.
Another person with no respect for the orders of federal judges.
Yeah, he was the one that told the clerks not to enforce the Obergefell decision by the Supreme Court, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I think he was also under investigation or found guilty of some other scandal as well.
So he has twice been censured by the state bar, and he was actually temporarily removed from his judgeship by the state bar over the Obergefell situation.
Yeah. So I think he is going to beat Luther Strange, it seems to me.
The polling has him up.
Yeah, I don't think. But do you think that do you think Democrats have any chance in Alabama?
No, I think Roy Moore is probably going to be the new junior senator from Alabama. I mean, I think it would be fitting for the person elected to replace Jeff Sessions is someone whose chief
an even bigger
is racism.
Is an even bigger racist.
I mean, I'm not sure bigger or smaller, but definitely more outspoken.
Yeah. It's a pretty sad situation. But I think it would be good if Sheriff Joe ran against Jeff Flake and just got his butt kicked. You know what I mean? That would be kind of nice. Sheriff Joe did lose his re-election battle this past year. Actually, he's 85. So, but I guess he'll keep going. I mean, I wish there was more to say about Sheriff Joe.
It's just the entire state of affairs is sad. It's horrible. It's despondent. So,
Tom, last time we talked about sort of what people's sort of moral responsibility was in certain situations. What are your thoughts on the Sheriff Joe situation? Is it how does it compare to the president's remarks about Charlottesville? His many sides.
Do I think? I don't understand your question.
Is this the same type of moral clarity moment that Charlottesville was, in your mind?
For who?
For people that support the president.
I don't. I mean, honestly, I don't think people that support the like it depends on what segment of those people, right? Like, I think that the Charlottesville thing is probably going to ring a lot truer. Because it takes some level of abstract thinking to work through just how this undermines the rule of law, right? Like, it's easy to write this off as, Trump pardoning someone that he thinks is a good guy, right? Like, if you wanted to be nice to Trump, I guess. I don't know. If you wanted to be, if you were already sympathetic to Trump, maybe.
So, like, I mean, there are those people who think that part of this is Trump just being willful, but part of it also is that it's a trial balloon. So how much do the American people care that a pardon is or isn't vetted by the respective offices of the DOJ that's supposed to do these recommendations? Or, so one of the things that happened in the 70s is that Nixon wasn't sure that his presidency would survive pardoning Ehrlichman and Haldeman. And so he never pardoned them, and they actually went to prison. And I think it is a reasonable question to ask, is that still true? Right?
Yeah.
Like, this sort of is a trial balloon. Maybe he pardons Kushner next.
Yeah. I think it is. I think that's a part of Trump that is maybe underappreciated. I think we often believe, I'm certainly guilty of it, that he doesn't really think strategically. He just sort of does whatever he wants. But again, if you were a strategic thinker and you did want to explore just how much you could get away with, and maybe if you did want to be a dictator, these are the types of trial balloons you would float up, right? You would see, can I get away with sort of attacking judges, attacking the media, flouting the rule of law? Maybe next, can I get away with firing Bob Mueller? Can I pardon my family? It almost calls for a continuing segment of sort of the what democratic norm will Donald Trump violate next, or in the next 6 months even. I think actually one thing, this is my theory, I think he's going to attack Martin Luther King Jr.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Is this like when Sean Spicer didn't know that Frederick Douglass was already dead? Like, are you saying that Donald Trump doesn't know?
No, that wasn't Sean Spicer. That was Donald Trump himself. Don't sully the name of Sean Spicer, AJ.
No, who's the one who said that Frederick Douglass's achievements are being recognized more and more?
That was Donald Trump.
No, that was Spicer, right?
No, that was Trump.
Oh my God, that was Trump.
Yeah.
Donald Trump said Frederick Douglass is being recognized more and more. That was Trump?
Yeah, in his mind,
You'll
that
never
is
guess.
probably
Hold
true.
on, I'm Googling right now. You'll never guess who is recorded on this tape saying that he likes to grab women by the pussy. I'm clicking and I'm clicking.
AJ, way to
turns
get
out
us
that it
on
was Sean
explicit.
Spicer.
Way to get us on explicit.
No, Richard, you don't understand. When you're a star, they let you do it.
So let me ask you guys a question. Did any Republican condemn this pardon of Joe Arpaio?
John McCain did.
John McCain did.
Anyone
John
else?
McCain did unequivocally. I think John McCain did it actually the least equivocally of anyone. But I think, if you want
Paul
to be
Ryan
charitable,
did too.
Not
Not as well as
Paul
McCain,
Ryan
but-
did through a spokesman, and it was definitely like he asked his buddy to do a subtweet of Trump. Like it was a live subtweet. The John McCain statement, I think, is probably the least equivocal condemnation of the Arpaio situation, right? And I think that there are two readings you could take from it, whether you want to be generous or ungenerous. And Ruchit, we can ascribe to you the generous interpretation that
Indeed.
John McCain is just mavericking it up and taking a good stand. But the other point to keep in mind is that Arpaio, recently lost re-election, is actually not that popular in Arizona, although he was for a time popular in Maricopa County. And so John McCain may just have an ear closer to the ground of the state than most people in the country. So for John McCain to be out there criticizing the Arpaio pardon, you might be able to say, oh, this is a principled stand, or you might just say this is someone who knows that this is a fairly safe position to take in Arizona. It also stakes out some ground for Jeff Flake to help him out in his re-election campaign, especially if Arpaio really does run against him.
Yeah, but
So-
Jeff Flake had a real milquetoast statement himself.
Yeah, but that's what John McCain is doing, right? Like John McCain gives Flake cover to, Flake doesn't have to take a particularly strong position on either side, because on the one hand you've got Trump pardoning him, and on the other hand you have McCain condemning the pardon, and suddenly this is an issue that divides the party itself, and you may not use this as a litmus test in a Republican primary the way you would if the entire GOP were united. That's my read on it, right? I think it's just as likely that it was tactical as it is likely that this was some principled stand by your favorite Maverick.
Could be. Is he my favorite Maverick, or is it Bob Corker? No, it's John McCain. Don't worry. I just don't like Sheriff Joe Arpaio. I don't like that Trump pardoned him. I don't think I have much more to say.
Wow. Just talking about the things you dislike. It's very negative.
Some things call for negativity. The birth of Mark Zuckerberg's child, maybe not so.
Great. Well, I have to delete that sort of context as reference from the show.
You could always link to the tweet that I'm referring to, AJ.
You want me to insert into the show me reading aloud the URL for the tweet that you're referring to? How do you in the stream of the medium? How would I link to this?
Well, you could just mention that it's in the show notes. If
I don't.
that's-
Don't check the show notes. We're not even doing the show notes joke because this isn't going to be in the episode.
But now at least you have like a long segment to edit out, AJ. At least now it won't be like a 5-second thing. You know what I mean?
Okay, so what do we want to talk about? Where do you go from here?
I think we could talk about. So, this is like mostly political gossip, but the Great Brexit of 2017. We could talk about that.
What?
Dude, Rex Tillerson is not going to be Secretary of State by the end of this year. That's my prediction. I think he's probably going to resign or be fired.
Hasn't he been leaking to the news that he hates this job?
It wasn't a leak if he just did it in person on television. So Rex Tillerson was being interviewed. I can't remember what show, but he was being interviewed.
No, we
on
got to
television.
read this quote. I'll find the quote. Go ahead, AJ.
I've got the quote in my head. So he's asked, does Donald Trump speak for the country when he makes these equivocal statements about Nazism? And then Rex Tillerson says something fairly milquetoast. And then the interviewer presses him. So does Donald Trump speak for the country when he makes these moral statements? And Rex Tillerson says, the president speaks for himself.
Yeesh.
The quote is even worse. I'm trying to find it right now. I don't believe, this is Tillerson, I don't believe anyone doubts the American people's values or the commitment of the American government or the government's agencies to advancing those values and defending those values. So he very purposefully talks about the American people, American government, and American government agencies. And so then Wallace asks, and the president's values? Tillerson, the president speaks from himself, Chris. Wallace says, are you separating yourself from that, sir? And then Tillerson, I've spoken. I've made my own comments as to our values as well in a speech I gave to the State Department.
Rooch, link that.
I'm going to. This is just like the most completely weak. I mean, it's almost as if he's going out of his way to be like, this isn't me, friends. This is not me. This is not like anyone affiliated with this country who isn't the president of the United States.
Yeah. Did you guys see the most recent leaked emails from the Trump camp about his ties to Russia?
Tell us about this, Tom.
So, I mean, there was a recent article basically going through some internal Trump organization email. You saw this? Yeah. Basically, during the campaign, the Trump organization was trying to set up a deal where they built a Trump Tower in Moscow, right?
While he was running for president.
Yeah, and it went so far as Trump signed a letter of intent saying that he wanted to build these towers. And so you have these great quotes from these emails like, our boy can become the president of the USA and we can engineer it. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. You know, just crazy stuff like that.
Okay, so do you know who's on the other end of these emails? This story is nuts. This story is super nuts. So the person on the other end of these emails is Michael Cohen, who is presently Trump's personal attorney, but he had been like a VP in the Trump organization. And so he was the point person for the Trump organization and getting this deal set up. So he's the one who had been like emailing with Felix Sater and all these other folks. And so Michael Cohen has had like a fairly illustrious career during the time he's been in the public consciousness. So he sent these boneheaded emails. He's also the person who went on CNN in August of 2016. And I don't know if you remember this interview on CNN, but the interviewer asks, you know, what do you make of all of these polls that show that Trump is losing? And Michael Cohen says, what polls? And then she says, all of the polls. Hold on, I'm gonna link this in the Skype chat so you can watch this while I'm gonna do this in the Slack. Open the Slack. I'm putting this link in the Slack. So Michael Cohen also during this episode, the deal was starting to stall. This is in like mid 2016. Like the campaign is in like full swing, and he sends an email to Putin's like one of Putin's press secretaries, and the gist of the email is like, hey, we're trying to do this deal is stalling, can your office intercede, right? And this is like you're reading this and you're like, oh, this is like real devious. Like the Trump organization is like personally reaching out to Putin to get help on this real estate deal that Trump denies even existed, even though we now know that Trump signed a letter of intent. And then it turns out that the email address that Michael Cohen was using was just like info@kremlin.gov. This wasn't like someone's like Gmail, you know. There's no it's just, it would be like if I just like sent Sarah Huckabee Sanders an email like, hey, first time caller, long time listener, big fan of the show. I was just thinking, you know, it would be nice if some of your press conferences were less racist.
By the way, I have this like tower that I want to build in Washington, D.C., and it sits where the Trump Tower sits. And I was just wondering, could I have that? No. Michael Cohen is... you know, this gets me back to, I think on one of our episodes, I talked about how I saw Vladimir Putin in New York City in June of 2016 and the New York Times, in their utter laziness,
if we had to rank
to follow up on
this. Ruchit talks about all the time, one is left Twitter, two is the time that he saw Putin in New York.
Dude, meeting at the very hotel that Michael Cohen was found to be meeting a bunch of Ukrainians loyal to Vladimir Putin. 3 blocks away from the Trump Organization headquarters. Just saying. But nobody wants to investigate this. No one wants to go and, look at the videotape. I've told the New York Times. I've told the Washington Post. No one's responded to me.
Via
I feel like Michael
encrypted
Cohen.
Snapchat.
I feel like Michael Cohen writing the Russian government. Why won't info@newyorktimes.com respond? This goes back to like what I think will end up being, if it turns out that the Trump campaign did not actually collude but just attempted to collude, it will be because of nothing but their own sheer stupidity. Like, this is going to be, if they're not like, if somebody isn't indicted and convicted on these things, it's going to be because the defense is really, we're too stupid to actually get that done.
I don't know. Is there any like Supreme Court thing you want to talk about?
Didn't the Supreme Court hold off on enforcing the lower court's ruling on Texas redistricting?
Oh, did the Supreme Court actually stay that? Wait, let's talk about this. So Texas has been. Wait, let's not talk about this. There's too much. Let's do a whole episode on this. Because Texas lost like 3 election law cases in like a week span. Like we should make that like a whole. We should actually do research and make that a whole episode.
So here's what Samuel Alito Jr., Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States, ordered. It is ordered that the order of the United States District Court for the Western District of Texas, entered August 15th, is hereby stayed pending receipt of a response due on or before September 5th, 2017 by 3 p.m. and further order of the undersigned or of the court. So basically, the lower court said, your maps are horrible, we need to do something about this. And Alito came in and said, whoa, let's hold off on that for a second.
Okay, well, let's actually save this for a whole episode, because this seems genuinely interesting. It seems to me very clearly that Texas's voting maps were very bad, and the cause of them being very bad was that the things that they did were motivated by a desire to be bad.
I mean, I think that's what the lower court held.
I got a great sidebar.
What's your sidebar?
Okay. This is from the official website of the United States Senate. This is www.senate.gov/art-in-history/minute/mysteries of the Senate bathtubs.htm.
Are you linking on the podcast?
Yeah. Hold on. Mysteries of the Senate bathtubs. I'm gonna here. I'll link this in the Slack.
I'm on the page.
Okay, so this is a crazy story. So the Senate actually, there's someone who like runs the Twitter account for the Senate, and they actually do like a pretty good job of like posting crazy stuff every once in a while. So this is a crazy story. In 1936, they were doing some renovations in the Capitol, and they knocked down this wall in the Capitol basement, and they discovered a bunch of like extraordinarily nice marble bathtubs, just like built into the wall of the Senate. And at the time, they were like,
was this to wash themselves of the sin that they had created that was attached to them?
These are the bathtubs that Grover Norquist wants to drown the government in once it's small enough. So the chief of the engineers at the Capitol engineer Arthur Cook, told reporters, "I've been working here over 40 years. I've never been able to find out about these tubs. It's just one of those unsolved mysteries. People had no idea why there were sunken Italian marble bathtubs in the basement of the Senate." Okay, so they found this at the time, a 71-year-old Abraham Lincoln Goodall solved the mystery. He in the 1880s, he had actually bathed in one of these tubs. Quote, "I was only a boy at the time," he remarked, "and I was mighty pleased when the president pro tem gave me a pass to the baths." So apparently what had happened is that in 1858, when the Capitol was undergoing renovations, a bunch of the senators got together and they said, "Hey, our boarding houses kind of suck, and it would be really helpful for us if there were bathing facilities at the Senate. And so they bought 6 really nice marble bathtubs, and they installed them in a basement in the Senate, and people could use the bathtub. So it was like pretty normal for senators before a big speech to go down in the basement and take a bath. And it became a custom over time for people to, you had like a nice visitor, you had like a particularly generous lobbyist or something visiting your office. You might say, hey, on your way out, you might consider having a bath. And so senators had the privilege of giving out passes to use these bathtubs. So it was, it was a particular privilege to go and take a bath in the basement of the Senate. This article, so this says, a House member once made the mistake of offering this perk to a lady visitor. Quote, "Won't you go down and take a bath?" he asked. Indignant, the woman fled the building.
People were so much classier back then. Nowadays, our elected officials, like our president, they just grab them by the,
by the pussy.
Indeed.
Because when you're a star, they let you do it.
These House members didn't think that way.
By the 1890s, this article says that most of the senators occupied homes with up-to-date plumbing, and so there was sort of no need for these tubs anymore. 4 of them were removed, and 2 of them were buried behind temporary walls and forgotten. And so, 40 years later, in 1936, when they knocked down this wall as part of the renovations, suddenly these mysterious tubs were visible again. So this is like a crazy story. I don't know how much you need to click on this link, because I actually have sort of told you all of the information in this article. And also, I mean, you should wait until it's a Democratic Senate before you give them the page clicks. But I've done the clicking, so you don't have to.
We can't even give the Republican Senate page clicks, AJ.
Here's my advice to our listeners. My advice is that you should find a wall in your house and knock it down and see if there's something behind there.
See if there's a bathtub. You never know what wall may be hiding a bathtub.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't know unless you knock down that wall. Think of yourself as the Secretary of Defense of the United States back in the Bush administration. You just can't prove that there are no bathtubs there without invading / tearing down your wall. It's the only way. They could be there.
So that's my sidebar. You're welcome.
Thanks.
It's good sidebar.
My sidebar is this article from the BBC, the title of which is "Burger King Launches Whopper Coin Crypto Cash in Russia." Basically, Burger King has decided to launch its own cryptocurrency called Whopper Coin in Russia, and you can claim 1 coin for every ruble you spend on a Whopper in Russia. And the idea is that it will be this loyalty system that Russians can use to keep track of their Whopper purchases.
Oh my God!
And it's all Bitcoin based.
Dude, they partnered with a tech company to run the blockchain ledger to keep track of who has coins.
Yeah. So like, I tweeted this, but my big question is,
Tom, by the way, that's not left Twitter right there. That's you not being left Twitter.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I might be left Twitter. You have to wait until you hear my tweet before you know. My question is, and AJ's probably already asleep since we're about to talk about Bitcoin. My question is, why do you need a distributed ledger? Because that's what Bitcoin's blockchain is. Why do you need a distributed ledger for something that like one company controls and uses? I mean, it's not funny, but it's just like I don't understand the purpose of Whopper coins.
Also, like, what is
Well, and the other thing that's hilarious,
are you afraid that your Whopper coins are going to get stolen? So you need them to be like, you need every Whopper coin to be like 256-bit encrypted, and that way, when you have 1,700 of them, you could turn them in for a Whopper.
Yes, but the other thing that's really funny about this is that this BBC article got some like expert on cryptocurrencies from Cornell to comment on this, or like he quoted him, and he's like talking about reward points are actually a good use case for blockchains, right? But then later he's like, he warned that the money, this could be used for money laundering and ransomware payments, and this will undoubtedly happen, right? Like as if like some mastermind criminal is laundering their money into Whoppers in Russia.
Or even better yet, like there's some Russian hackers out there, and they're like, "Man, I don't want dollars or Bitcoin or rubles. You better pay me in Whopper coin."
Yes. I want to be able to buy a lifetime supply of Whoppers with this Whopper coin, because that's all you can do with Whopper coins.
Did you ever read that story about how like Tide is an unofficial street currency in some cities?
Tide, the
No.
detergent.
Yeah. So
Why?
Hold on, let me find this article. This is actually pretty interesting. So it's like the opposite of a Veblen good. Have you ever heard of a Veblen good?
No, what is that?
So a Veblen good is a good that's like only valuable because it's like it's only valuable for reasons other than its utility.
So like tulips.
Yeah, tulips. Tulips is like I think Veblen actually was Dutch. I think he was talking about tulips, right? But
Okay.
like people have said that like Veblen, the description Veblen goods describes like diamonds or whatever. Because diamonds have like a modicum of utility, but for the most part, a lot of the demand is for totally non-utilitarian functions. So anyway, there's this New York Mag article from 2013, and it's oh god, Tom already found it. Okay, well anyway, there's this New York Mag article which is like pretty good. I read it years ago, and it just came to mind as we were talking about people like money laundering using like Whopper coin or whatever. But basically like people steal tons and tons of Tide, and people use Tide as this like unofficial currency in certain cities, and the reason why is that it's actually like useful. Is this like useful good, so you can like trade Tide for like crack cocaine or something, and the reason why is that like everybody's got to do laundry.
Yeah, but the question is whether Whoppers are useful.
I mean, some
Heck
people
yeah,
think they
dude.
taste good.
Yeah, dude. Some people love Whoppers. I mean, I think there's going to be the like a massive surge of unclaimed Whopper coins. You know, and then I don't know what you're going to do. But Burger King's not very ambitious, right? I mean, like you get one Whopper coin for every ruble that you spend, and then you got to spend 1,700. I mean, it's just shouldn't they create an aura around their Whopper coin? I wonder why they chose Russia. Like, I think we should tweet Burger King and let them know we've mentioned their Whopper coin. We're probably maybe the second or third media outlet to do so. You know what we could do is we could interview the creator of Whopper coin as a follow-on to our highly popular series, or not series, but as to our episode on everything we know about Bitcoin.
I mean, maybe we could just interview Simon Tam about Whopper coin.
That guy makes such a great interview.
He seems like a good sport.
He does. Even though he didn't give us any shout outs, you know?
What are you talking about?
Did
he retweet our show or something?
Yeah, he
dude.
gave us tons of shout outs on Twitter. You didn't read it because I think you're not read Twitter.
Yeah, that's part of the left Twitter.
Simon Tam actually was like an extraordinarily gracious guest on our show, and then later won a Supreme Court case. And the fact that Richard even has a negative word to say about Simon Tam is like a condemnation of our entire society. I mean, he is a model person and professional.
I mean, I don't know how to respond to that, but if I was left Twitter, I would figure out a way to be snarky about it.
Rich, are you stalling because you don't have a sidebar?
No, I have a sidebar. Are you kidding? No, I've got a sidebar.
What's your sidebar? Let's do it.
Dude, my sidebar is this Arctic hideaway in Norway called, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like 40 Pingsrommet. I don't know. Anyway, you need to click on the sidebar. You need to check it out. It is a place up in the Arctic
Can you link
Circle.
to it in the podcast, please?
Yeah, I did. It's in the show notes.
No, link to it in the podcast.
As in, like,
Tom wants you to read the URL.
spell it out.
Okay.
Anyway.
This is taking too long to load, dude.
Dude, it just loaded on my computer. You need to get Google Fiber, dude.
I'm signed up. It's going to take me 8 months.
Yeah, dude. Now you know what I went through.
No, dude, because I wasn't like stealing internet from your neighbor.
Dude, don't talk about that. So this is a series of 7 houses that are built on this island, and the island is only accessible by boat. And they're these just beautiful 7 modern houses. And one of my ambitions in life is to get a group of friends, including yous guys, obviously, to go rent these houses and live there for a week.
Why would 7 friends need 7 houses? Couldn't we just like all fit into one house?
Well, so it's not. So one of the houses is like a kitchen. So one of the houses is like a kitchen. One of them is like a communal room. One of them is a bathroom. So it's really only 4 houses, and they're like different sizes. But you get this entire island to yourself.
They are well designed.
Yeah, and there's the island is called Fleinvaver, I think. You can get there. There's 2 daily departures to and from the island, and it's from downtown Bodo is where it happens, man. So I think it's really, really beautiful place. I love that. So one of the FAQs that they have is, what's not there? Here are no shops and no cars. Here's no stress and no dangerous animals.
So no bears?
No bears.
I don't know about that, dude.
Yeah, dude. There's 15 might work, apparently. So you can have between 1 and 15 people. There's a cave as well that you can sleep in. It's really nice. It's like the type of place you just go for a week to, or more, just to get away from it all. And it's not that expensive. It's like I think it's about.
Look how well manicured their Instagram feed is, dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is there a left Instagram?
I don't think so. Definitely not that I know of.
Just you wait, dude.
Should we call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's call it, dude. Should we stop recording? Should I hit the stop button?
Let's hit the stop button.
Okay, I'm hitting the stop button. No. I mean, listen, there are some things that come off of Twitter that are truly funny, and I put in the obligatory LOL, if you will. But I think the problem is most of left Twitter they just use it as a means to be snide and not even that funny. If they were funny like Mike Huckabee, that would be one thing, But I was waiting for an OMG from AJ, and for some reason he's feeling restrained today.
I can't even.
He can't even.
Richard, thinking that Mike Huckabee is funny has to be your worst ever opinion.
No. I mean, listen, in the 2008 campaign, that's when he ran for president, right? Wasn't it 2008? Did he run in 12 as well? I forget.
I think he's always ran.
Yeah, so in 8 and 12, I found him extremely funny.
I got to say, if Richard got on the Skype call and was like, oh, by the way, I love mayonnaise. I love just eating mayonnaise. I love it when
hot, moist mayonnaise.
I love just taking a big spoon and sticking it in the jar of the mayonnaise and then eating the mayonnaise off of the spoon. If Richard came in and said, oh, I love eating all of this mayonnaise and I also think Mike Huckabee is funny, Mike Huckabee is the worst opinion.
I mean, listen, Mike Huckabee's not a good person, in my opinion, for some of his views, but he's funny, dude. I mean, he's funny, Like, his tweets have not been so funny. So, I actually, after I told you guys that I considered Mike Huckabee funny, I was like, and you guys disputed that, I assumed that there was some left Twitter conspiracy that was like, out to get Mike Huckabee. And, of course, there is, but they're right. Left Twitter's right in this situation. Mike Huckabee is not funny on Twitter. But he was very funny when he had his own TV show on Fox News.
This is terrible. This is off-brand for us.
Rooch, you're not on Twitter, but you watch Fox News?
I don't believe anyone, this is what Tillerson said. I don't believe anyone doubts. Hold on. All right, cut that out. Let me say it again.
Dude, you're off mic.
Oh my God, you're so off mic.
Can you hear me now?
No. Get on mic, dude.
Is there like a pillow between you and the microphone?
No, dude, I'm here. It's like right here. There's me and the mic.